What if I told you that the key to living with more peace, security, and purpose is already right in front of you and you might be overlooking it without even realizing? The truth is, a lot of people spend their lives chasing stability, inner peace, and a more abundant life, but end up feeling like they're trying to fill a bucket full of holes. Then comes the exhaustion, the frustration, and that lingering feeling that something is always missing. But what if the secret isn't about doing more, running faster, or having more, but about trusting more? Psalm 23, even though it's one of the most well-known passages in the Bible, carries deep layers that go far beyond beautiful words recited in hard times. It's a map, a divine blueprint showing us how to live with provision, protection, and purpose even when everything around us feels chaotic. As you go through this content, you'll discover that the phrase, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," isn't just religious comfort, it's a bold statement of trust. One that can shift the way you see life, fear, struggles, and even eternity itself. Get ready, Psalm 23 is about to move from something you've memorized to something you actually live by. Saying the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a decision. It's like David is saying, even when everything seems to be missing, I choose to trust. That kind of radical trust challenges us to trade anxiety for rest, even when the bills pile up or the answers are slow to come. It's about living with the deep conviction that in God's provision, nothing truly lacks. Imagine waking up every morning with this truth pounding in your heart today. God is taking care of me. That changes everything from how you handle problems at work to how you respond to bad news. It doesn't mean pretending challenges don't exist. It means facing them with spiritual confidence, knowing there's a shepherd leading your every step. This declaration also points to a choice for relationship. David doesn't say a shepherd, he says my shepherd. It's personal, it's intimate. It's about walking side by side with the Creator, recognizing that He cares, protects, and provides like no one else can. And when you live like that, even what once felt like absence begins to reveal a path toward an abundant life. David didn't choose the image of shepherd by accident. He had been one himself. He knew exactly what it meant to care for, feed, and protect a flock even when no one was watching. So when he called God his shepherd, he was saying, God is with me in the everyday stuff in the mud, in the mess, in the heat, and the storms. This isn't some distant leadership, it's a constant, active, personal presence. Picture a shepherd sleeping out in the fields, alert to every strange sound at night, ready to chase off wolves or guide the sheep back when they wander. That's the image. God doesn't just watch from a distance, He walks beside us, leading with love. The presence of God is both a shelter and a compass. We're not left to figure life out alone. We have someone who guides us with strength and gentleness. And this metaphor reminds us of something important for sheep. And let's be honest, sheep aren't exactly known for their independence. They need steady care. And that's okay. Admitting that isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When we trust the shepherd, we step into a rhythm of relationship with God where we learn, we listen, and we follow more clearly, even when the path doesn't seem to make sense. You know those days when your soul feels worn out like you've just run an emotional marathon? That's exactly when the green pastures and still waters show up. They're not just pretty center-thigh invitations from God to pause, breathe, and remember that rest is real for those who trust. In a world that demands hustle, He offers peace. This rest goes far beyond the physical. It's that quiet sense of being in the right place, even when everything around you feels chaotic. It's inner peace that no one else can quite explain, but you can feel it. It changes everything. And yes, sometimes finding that rest means turning off your phone, opening up Psalm 23, and simply being in God's presence. These pastures and waters also speak of divine provision. God doesn't feed us emotional crumbs. He offers a feast of hope, direction, and love. If you've been feeling like you're barely getting by, maybe it's time to accept His invitation to rest. A devotional moment, a heartfelt prayer, or even a slow walk reflecting on His goodness, all of that is part of your soul's renewal. God doesn't just hand you back a fixed soul like someone replacing a broken part. He restores your soul with tenderness, in his perfect timing, like someone tending to a wound with daily care. The phrase "he restores my soul" reveals that a constant healing process, where regrets are washed away and scars become stories. It's not magic, it's continual presence. Maybe you're in one of those seasons where everything feels stuck emotionally, spiritually, even physically. In those moments, it's easy to feel like God has gone silent. But that's often when he's working the most. Soul restoration happens behind the scenes, in the quiet moments, in prayers that don't have words, in the tears no one else sees. And every part of that process is worth it. If you want to experience that restoration, start with small steps. Write down the areas of your life that need healing. Pray honest line, no filters. Read Psalm 23 like a conversation, not just a piece of poetry. Bit by bit, you'll start to feel that heavy weight lift. Because God doesn't just fix what's broken, he transforms it. When the Bible talks about paths of righteousness, it's not asking for perfection, it's talking about direction. It's like God saying, walk with me, even if you stumble. He'll show you the way. These paths aren't always the easiest or the most popular, but they lead to abundant life, shaping our character and strengthening our faith along the way. Walking in God's ways means letting go of shortcuts and learning to trust his timing. Sometimes it looks like saying no when everyone else is saying yes. Other times, it's choosing integrity when no one's watching. But there's a reward, a deep spiritual security that the world can't explain, but that fills the soul of anyone who walks with him. And the most beautiful part? It's all for his name's sake. In other words, he guides us not because we've earned it, but because he is faithful. So if you feel lost or off track, don't give up. Getting back on the right path is always an option. A sincere prayer, an honest decision, a generous act, all of these reconnect you to your original purpose. At some point, everyone walks through a dark valley. Whether it's grief, a financial crisis, a tough diagnosis, or deep disappointment, David doesn't deny it. He acknowledges that the valley is real. But what changes everything is the phrase, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me." God's presence doesn't erase the valley, it lights the way through it. It's easy to trust when life is good, but it's in the valley that trust is tested and strengthened. God never promised we wouldn't face hard times, but he did promise we'd never face them alone. Even in the worst-case scenario, there's spiritual security in knowing he sees you, hears you, and walks right beside you. It's like walking through darkness while holding the steady hand of a father who knows exactly where he's leading you. If you're in that valley right now, take a deep breath. You're not abandoned. A sincere prayer, even through tears, is powerful. Reading Psalm 23 in these moments is like lighting a candle inside your chest. It brings comfort, direction, and hope. Just remember, it's the valley of the shadow of death, not death itself. And shadows only exist where there's light. We're not usually big fans of the word correction, right? But the rod and staff David mentions aren't tools of punishment here, symbols of care. The rod drives away danger. The staff pulls the wandering sheep back. Both are used with love. God doesn't discipline to punish, but to protect, guide, and save us from things we often don't even see coming. There are times when God closes doors, shifts our plans, or allows discomfort and we wonder why. But often, that's his staff at work, keeping us from walking into trouble. It's like that friend who tells you the hard truth you don't want to hear, but deep down, you know they're right. God is that kind of faithful friend, correcting with truth and grace. If you want to experience God's guidance more clearly, start by praying for discernment. Ask him to show you when it's the rod protecting and when it's the staff correcting. And be ready to listen, because in the end, these are the tools of a shepherd who never abandons his flock. He cares, even when that care feels uncomfortable. God doesn't wait for things to calm down before he moves. He prepares a table in the presence of your enemies right there in the middle of the battlefield, with chaos all around. It's as if he's saying, while they attack you, they'll serve you. That's undeniable favor. It's God making it clear that you have worth, even when others try to tear you down. It's divine provision in the middle of tension. Picture someone calmly enjoying a feast while their enemies watch from across the room, fuming. It's not arrogance, it's protection and honor from above. God doesn't erase the enemies, but he proves his presence is greater than any threat. And when he serves, it's abundance. There are no empty plates at his table. If you feel surrounded by criticism, envy, or pressure, know that table is for you. Don't give up. Don't back down. Stay firm on the paths of righteousness, because God's response won't be shouting or revenge, it'll be communion, blessing, and bread on the table. And that speaks louder than any word of opposition. When David says, "You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows," he's talking about divine favor. Anointing with oil was a sign of being chosen for a purpose, for honor, for mission. God doesn't just give us the bare minimum, he anoints us with identity and calling. It's like he's saying, you're not just another face in the crowd. I've set you apart for something greater. And that changes everything. And the overflowing cup, it's a symbol of abundant life. It's not about just having enough, it's about having more than enough. Joy that spreads, peace that spills over, faith that lifts others. That kind of overflow doesn't come from external success, it comes from a heart full of God's presence. When you're deeply connected to him, abundance becomes a lifestyle. Want to live like that? Start by asking God to anoint what you do, your work, your family, your projects. Dedicate every detail to him and watch how he turns the ordinary into something extraordinary. Abundance begins in the unseen. And when it comes from him, it doesn't dry up, weigh you down, or confuse you. It simply overflows. Some people spend their whole lives running from their past, from their mistakes, from their fears. But Psalm 23 flips the script beautifully. Instead of being chased by guilt or trauma, we are followed by goodness and mercy. And not passively they pursue us. It's like God is saying, you might try to hide, but my love will find you. That image changes everything. God doesn't give up on those who fall, wander, or mess up. His mercy is the kind of forgiveness that renews itself every single day, not because we've earned it, but because of his grace. And his goodness? It's not just a bonus, it's the way he takes care of us, even when we don't notice. Have you ever received a blessing right when you least expected it? To live in that truth, start practicing gratitude. Write down 3 signs of God's goodness each day. It could be something as simple as a meaningful conversation, unexpected protection, or peace that settles your heart. These little things are reminders you're not drifting through life. You're being followed by love, generosity, and a God who refuses to stop chasing after you. Psalm 23 isn't about survival, it's about abundance. It's not just about having the bare minimum to get by. It's about living with a full heart, a peaceful soul, and a faith that's alive. God invites us to break free from a scarcity mindset, the one that says this won't be enough, or this is too much for me, and step into a new way of living, where trust outweighs fear. This divine provision isn't just material, though, it can include that too. It's having clarity when making decisions, comfort in the pain, and courage in the fight. It's waking up knowing that even if you're not in control, you're in the hands of the one who is. And that, my friend, is true freedom. When you live in abundance, you realize that what overflows from within is far more valuable than whatever might be missing on the outside. To live this practically, start replacing scarcity thoughts with faith-filled declarations. When that "I'm not going to make it" thought comes, respond with, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Make Psalm 23 your life manual. Read it, meditate on it. Speak it out loud, because God didn't call you to just get by, he called you to live fully. After everything we've talked about, let me ask you, how have you been living your days? Rushing through them, carrying the weight, or walking in trust and purpose? Psalm 23 isn't just a comforting passage for hard times, it's a way of life. It invites you to walk with God through green pastures, to rest beside still waters, to fear no evil in the valley of the shadow of death, and to believe your cup will overflow. Maybe it's time to pause and ask, am I truly letting the Lord be my shepherd, or am I still trying to control everything on my own? That one question could change your entire journey. So why not start today? Even a small habit, one prayer, one moment of stillness, one act of surrender can open the door to abundant living, filled with peace, direction, and purpose. If this message spoke to you, if something inside of you woke up, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more reflections like this one. The journey doesn't stop here. There's still so much to discover, to grow in, and to live out with the shepherd who never leaves his flock.